So one thing that has happened at the Canadian Grand Prix is the war of words, at least the press would like you to believe it, between Jacques Villeneuve and Daniel Ricciardo. Grand Prix winner against Grand Prix world champion. Who is right when Jacques absolutely lambasted poor Daniel Ricciardo on Sky. Ricardo then kind of came back in the interviews, and then Jacques Villeneuve, I think, is maybe pointed out that it's now getting personal. All this after this. So, welcome back. So, let's get into the first video. This is the clip from Sky. I'm just going to play it. You probably have already heard it, but here we go.
Why is he still in F1? Why? What? We're hearing the same thing now for the last 4 or 5 years. We have to make the car better for him, poor him. Sorry, it's been 5 years of that. No, you're in F1. Maybe you make that effort for Lewis Hamilton, who's won multiple championships. You don't make that effort for a driver that can't cut it. If you can't cut it, go home. There's someone else to take your place. That's how it's always been in racing. It's the pinnacle of the sport. There's no reason to...
I mean, at this point, I think he's got a point. Daniel Ricciardo, as you know, he left Red Bull because it was looking like Max Verstappen's team. It all came ahead to that race in Baku. Then he went to Renault, who would actually, to be fair, that was their best recent period, I think, with Daniel Ricciardo, getting a couple of podiums there. And Renault were very much on the up. And then he went to McLaren for the 2021 and 2022 season. And he just couldn't get on with the car. He was embarrassed, let's be fair, by Lando Norris, to the point where McLaren, he did have a third year, but McLaren were like, no thank you. And he ended up kind of almost unemployed until Christian Horner, who is a fan of Daniel Ricciardo, and why not, put his arms around him, and he ended up going to the being, the Red Bull third Red Bull test driver. And then there was that space in RB where Nick de Vries didn't measure up, and he was part of the RB team, and he's now part of the RB team. But other than a couple of race weekends, he has been shown up by Yuki Tsunoda. So what Jacques is saying is he's not good enough. He should be going. But let's carry on.
Going and to keep finding excuses. And you all talk about that first season or first 2 seasons. He was beating a Vettel that was burnt out, that was trying to invent things with the car to go win, and just...
He says he's trying to beat a Vettel that was burnt out. I don't quite agree. I think that's slightly unfair on Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo. In 2014, I think Daniel Ricciardo, you could make an argument, was one of, if not the best driver of that season, along with Lewis Hamilton, who won. But Hamilton was in such, dominant form. And he had a really solid win in Canada, a bit of luck, but a fantastic win in Hungary, and a bit of luck again in Belgium when the two Mercedes came together that year. So I think Villeneuve's being a bit unfair. Yes, Sebastian Vettel didn't do that well that year, but kind of I think a bit like what we saw with Lewis Hamilton at the beginning of 2022, Vettel was spoiled, let's say, for having the best car with the blown diffuser. It was a car that gave you immense grip in the corners, helping to suck that car down to the ground, and it suited Vettel to a T, arguably very much like this. The Red Bull suited Verstappen to a T in 22 and 23 and onwards. And I think that's a bit unfair. I don't really think Vettel was trying to do that much with the car, and I think that's I disagree with Jacques there.
Making a mess of his weekends, and then he was beating for half a season Verstappen when Verstappen was 18 years old, just starting. Then that was it.
Yes, he did beat Verstappen when Verstappen was just starting. Verstappen was still developing as a driver, wasn't he? However, I still think Verstappen was absolutely solid. When Lewis Hamilton came in, he was a bit older than Verstappen. I mean, Lewis Hamilton beat Fernando Alonso in his first year, nearly winning the championship. So once again, I don't quite think that is entirely fair. And towards Daniel Ricciardo's end of his tenure, the team was very much Team Verstappen.
He stopped beating anyone after that.
He beat his Renault teammates. Jack. Come on. He beat his Renault teammates.
I mean, that's quite a harsh look at his career. From your point of view then, do you think he's been overrated the whole time?
I think it's his image has kept it in F1 more than his actual result.
Now, a lot of people have suggested it's this image that has kept him in F1 rather than the result. I think he's kind of got a point there. Into a lot of people have suggested it's his image, and he's very sponsor friendly, which is the reason why he got signed to that RB seat and kept the RB seat and may well be keeping it because of that reason. He's very good. He is a very likable chap at the moment. I think if he still has really, really bad results and he has kept in the team and continuing to have bad results, kind of like a Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll, then suddenly it's not very, very good. But I would still rate, and I would still rate a Daniel Ricciardo better than a Lance Stroll, better than a Sergio Perez. So, I mean, I'm copying it. I mean, even this guy on Twitter. I mean, aren't we all thinking it? Yeah, to a certain extent, I get it. I really do. So, this was Ricardo's reaction to Jaques, sort of.
Why is he still in F1?
No, that wasn't Ricardo. That wasn't Ricardo's reaction to Jaques. Let's try. There we go.
You've had your critics this weekend. Is that a good way to answer them?
I've just been told. I don't listen or read, but yeah, there's definitely some people out there who, whatever. I won't give them the time of day, but yeah, top 5. I've been quick all weekend. We're less than 2/10 from pole, so
yeah. Yes, and then the reason for the gap is he then tells doesn't tell Jacques, but he then says eat SH star T. So he's not particularly very polite there. But Planet F1 have come out and they're talking about Jacques Villeneuve. And essentially, I'm just trying to get. So Jacques Villeneuve, he's been he's hit back at what he's called personal Daniel Ricciardo comments, and it's saying that it's all got personal. Has it though? So he's stating he's got too many excuses, as in Daniel Ricciardo has too many excuses. Ricardo fired back, telling the media, as you just heard. I heard he's been, talking SH1T. Now, whether it was a coincidence or Ricardo was motivated by this criticism, he had a really solid weekend. And Jacques Villeneuve said his reaction was a bit personal, and he's a role model. Like all these 20 drivers, you're top level, you have to be responsible in your answers. Professional. Kids are listening to you. You cannot make it personal. I'm happy to have learned I knocked myself out often playing ice hockey. But ultimately, he said, you will get criticism. You need a thick skin, which is right. And I got under his skin, but it got better for his driving. But it's not enough. He needs to do more of this. He continued, Jacques did. The pressure is on him, a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and it worked out. He's had one good sprint race in Miami, one good qualifying, and that's not enough for a full season. He needs more of that. Yes, I completely agree with you, Jacques, there. Daniel Ricciardo absolutely does need more of that. And asked if he was standing by his comments. To be fair, Villeneuve was like, yes, he was quick, but you're only as good as your last few results. We need the same thing for the next few weekends. And that's something we've been saying here, and a lot of other people have been saying. We know Daniel, there you go, he's capable of it. He just needs to be more consistent. And although I disagree with a couple of Jack's points, absolutely. I mean, truth hurts, I think in relation to that. This is him, I think this was on a podcast on the Go F1 show not that long ago. I think possibly a couple of days ago, and I looked at some of the comments. We'll see. If we look at some of the comments, well, there's not that many there. I don't know if these are just the recent ones, but I don't know. But this was him on the show, on the Go F1 show. And which I'm just going to share my screen. I'm not sure that, this may have been a couple of years ago for all I know, but he says similar things about Daniel Ricciardo.
Mojo, or he doesn't like these modern cars. It's possible. He had a hard time at Alpine, and he's had an awful time at McLaren, and it doesn't look like he can actually work around a car routine that doesn't suit him to bring it to himself. Either that, or he's taking the big paycheck and he's happy. Who knows?
Can it be a tiny thing that has a big effect on lap time?
Well, it could be a tiny thing that happened 4 years ago. It doesn't have to be this year. A lot of driving is also in the head, and how you approach the team and how you work with it. Now, not being inside the team, it's impossible for any of us to judge why, how. So there's something that just doesn't work. Some drivers suddenly lose their speed. That happens. They lose their belief.
And that's the thing. I wonder if it is that. Jacques Villeneuve saying he lost his belief in himself. And that's what Red Bull said was very much the issue with the Daniel Ricciardo coming out of his McLaren. And I guess, let's be fair, with the minute you start going 200 miles per hour around a corner, or near 200 miles per hour around a corner, you kind of need a belief in yourself. So you may have a point. You may have a point there.
And suddenly you take 1 or 2 tenths off, you get beaten by your teammate, and that's it. And that started happening when Verstappen started beating him.
Yeah, fair enough. It did.
I don't know if he's lost his.
That did start happening when Verstappen beat him. I mean, ultimately, Daniel Ricciardo has proven at the Canadian Grand Prix and at the sprint that he has still got it. He is capable of beating Yuki Tsunoda. I still think what happened to Daniel Ricciardo is still in Daniel Ricciardo's hands. No, he's not going to get that Red Bull seat. He's not going to be Sergio Perez's replacement. Although at this stage, I don't, I think, it's it's swapping an apple with an apple, isn't it? Potentially. But I do think the future of Daniel Ricciardo is in Daniel Ricciardo's hands. As I think the future of Sergio Perez is still in Sergio Perez's hands. If he has more performances like that and costs Red Bull the Constructors' Championship, what's going to happen then? Maybe if Red Bull did get rid of Sergio Perez, that's going to open it up for Daniel Ricciardo. So if you liked what you heard or you want to comment below. Let us know if you like. That would be great. You'll be an F1 world champion in our eyes. If you comment below, same thing. If you do both, wow, then you're going to be a multiple world champion. Stay subscribed so you can, get and hit that notification button. I think that's the first time I've ever mentioned it. I've done like 800 videos plus, and I've not mentioned the notification button. So hit that. You'll be notified of every time we do an upload, especially if you are into your motorsport, because we have F1 rally and touring car and the odd bit of gaming as well, if you're interested. So hit that notification button. You'll be amazing in our eyes. If you do, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.